imagine someone who's like a 60-year-old grandpa who spent his life slogging, working hard to provide for his family, and gave up on his passion of being a game developer at some point, right?
Yeah.
Now that 60-year-old person can sit over a weekend, code his idea into existence, and be happy, like, even if that means that he's not building it for others, even if that's like self satisfaction, he's happy that he was able to do this, right? It's just so magical, and I'm very, I mean,
And who
it
knows,
almost feels like
sometimes
we are in an alternate timeline.
from those kind of people that now are able to do that, something magical can come out, and then you have also a huge amazing game, that can also happen. So okay, so today I'm here with the YouTuber, author of How to Market Your Game Like a Pro and Make Money, with more than 13 years of experience working in more than 150 games, creator of the arcade room gaming community and Game Eon Studios, Nikhil Malankar. Welcome
Hey, hi
to
Norman.
the Game Creators Framework.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and I'm looking forward to this session, and I hope to provide value to your audience as well.
Me too, I'm really glad you're here. So, the first thing I would like to know is I'm really curious of your whole journey. Like, you've done so many different things right now in the gaming industry. I would love to know, how did you end up like doing all of this and now with the studio and everything? Can you give us like a brief idea of how that
So yeah,
started?
I mean, I'll regard my journey as a foolish journey because I did a lot of things that I didn't know I was capable of. Somewhere along the way, I made some mistakes, I made some right decisions, etc. But overall, all in all, it's been a fantastic journey. I get to make games for my living, so that's amazing. There have been some couple of highs and lows in my journey, so would love to talk about that. Game On Studios, unfortunately, is a venture that I was running for the last 13 odd years, but I had to put that, at the back burner because unfortunately we raised a round and we were trying to build something very ambitious, and we fell short of our target. So we fell short of the money, and yeah, it's been a brutal journey. But I've seen like most of the ups and downs, right from the days when Subway Surfers was launched, then the boom of gaming in India, and I've also raised around for my own startup previously. So yeah, it's been like filled with lots of highs and lows, and somewhere down the line, I also like to educate people and share my learnings transparently. So that's where the YouTube channel came in, and I never realized that like I would get about over 100,000 plus subscribers. It was like a huge surprise for me, because I thought that game development, who would be interested in game development? Of course, everyone likes to play games, but game development is a very technical side. And at the same time, I realized that when I started my journey, there's almost little to no resources available on the internet in my native language. I speak Hindi and Marathi. So I thought, I might as well just help another brother or a sister out and put out content around 100 of the most common questions that I had when I started out. And I did that, and then the channel started growing organically. So yeah, that's been my journey. Lots more to talk about, but I think that's just a short intro that I can give. Yeah.
Amazing, yeah. I think that actually, in the sense of the technical part of game development, there's not really that much content in general. Yeah, I mean, amazing that you're doing it in your own language and you're helping your community in that way. But I feel like in general, it's always much more about how to play games than how to make them. And that's why people end up making so many mistakes, like these ideas that you had of what. Yeah. Can you walk us a little bit through how did you started the studio? How do you raise the money? And then what were the mistakes you might think you got?
Sure, sure. So I started the studio when I was right of my college, right in my college. That was around when I was 19 years old. And essentially, what happened was, I always loved playing games, but translating that to a development journey, I had to do a lot of learning by myself. And this is the time where, internet was just booming, and a wealth of information was coming on the internet in the form of documentation. And fortunately, around that point of time, game engines had evolved to a stable state. So I decided that, first and foremost, I will pick up the technical knowledge required, that is C++, which was also taught to me in my college as well. So, but I quickly realized that the curriculum being taught in college is cannot really be applied to game development, because yes, of course, there's the basic principles of C++ that were there. That was the foundational journey. But beyond that, there was no or little to no education formally from a college, at least especially the college which I was in. So I decided that, okay, it's not there, so might as well do the research by myself. So I went through, all the documentation. I've learned Python as a language, and the first game that I ever published was actually built in Python, in a subset called Pygame. So Pygame has a subset for game development, and that first game taught me a lot of things. My first transition into becoming a game developer from a gamer. Gamers think that making games are all fun and games. I mean, while it is, but there are journeys that you have to go through that are not so easy or fascinating to look, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I remember staying up till 4 a.m., 5 a.m., just grueling through documentation, learning tips and tricks on how to make games. And that's when I started the studio. It took me about for the first 3 odd years, we didn't even make any money. 2.5 or 3 odd years, we were literally making games, and we were earning money, but not through games. We were making websites and apps for clients that we could find, because
Oh,
obviously we had built up a team, and we had to pay them. Now, obviously, these were, we were also kids, so we used to pay them in weekend pizzas, from whatever money, small amount of money that we could earn from these projects.
so you were like kind of
And that
bootstrapping. You were kind of bootstrapping everything you could from different software projects to be able to make your games. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. So that's basically how the journey started. And eventually, by the third year, we did end up making money from games as well. But unfortunately, this time, our college journey was coming to an end, and there was a little bit of a parental pressure that, you need to get serious with life, you need to earn a stable income, blah blah blah. So that's when, this group that we had formed kind of dispersed, and rest of them started finding their own jobs. I also happened to get a job under one of the ex CTOs of one of the listed companies. It wasn't listed back then, but I got a chance to work under Mr. Sanjay Soni, who was at the time the CTO of this company that I mentioned.
Yep.
And he was someone at the time, he had over 13 plus years of experience. And he mentored me through the entire journey. So I worked under him for a year. And then it was a contract of 1 year. And then at the end of the contract, I was like, okay, what should I do next? Should I hop from one job to the other? Or should I take a leap of faith back on my studio? So I decided to take a leap of faith on my studio again. And that's wherein I bootstrapped this entire company. And I reached out to my friends with whom I had started the company. By this time, they had settled themselves in well paying jobs and all. So they were like, okay, we are not interested. You can do whatever you want. So that's what I did. Fortunately, by this point of time, I had also created my own network of game developers and clients and whatnot. And this time around, I realized that, I can't do without money for the next 3 years. So I have to focus on
Oh
making sure
wow.
that I'm making money. And because, like, I had cracked a formula of how to make money through games, so that's what I focused on. So I started with a small team of three people, including myself. So there was me looking at, client relations, getting, making sure that there's money on the table. And then there was a programmer and a game designer. And this was when we started actually focusing right on the money aspect. So year one, we did about equivalent of 20,000 US dollars of revenue with 5,000 net profit. And year two, that is, this is year one considering 2019. Year two was 2020, the pandemic. So
Yeah. Okay.
luckily, we were able to 10x our revenue. So from 20,000 US dollars, we shot all the way to 200,000 US dollars, $250,000
Wow.
US dollars. And of that, about 180,000 US dollars roughly was net profit. So we were profitable. We were in a very good position. And this is wherein I decided that, I want to take a leap of faith on the crazy ambitious idea that I had as a ninth grade kid,
Mm.
which is to actually make a game based on the city of Mumbai, which I was born and brought up in. So
Oh.
yeah, so now that I had the traction, I had the revenue, I had all the numbers to back and pose myself as someone credible in the industry. I then went on to so during this point of time, I was also doing financially well myself. So I became an investor myself, and I enrolled in one of the investor networks. And I was like, okay,
Mm.
like now that I'm an investor as well, I can pitch my own startup to these set of investors, and that's what I did. And we were able to raise about $500,000 in that year. After that was done, it was essentially just focusing on the game, and that's where things started breaking very badly, because I had run this studio bootstrap, but this was the first time that I had to scale my team rapidly and rapidly. So like $500,000 work over just like that,
Oh,
because
wow.
we had amped up our team size. So from before funding, we were a team of three, then we grew to eight, and we grew to 21 people. After funding, suddenly from 21 we grew to 55 people, and that's
Okay.
wherein the payrolls were a nightmare, and there were a lot
I,
of
I,
things.
I would like to ask you something before we continue in this specific point then. So you hired all that people with the money you were getting. You were prepared to make this idea of a game. What about the scope of the game? You had already an idea of exactly how the scope was going to be, or was it kind of still like in the middle of, oh, I'm going to have this, but I might add more stuff because now I have money? Or like, can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, this is one of the biggest mistakes that mostly game developers do, is that they don't scope out their game well, and this is essentially the mistake that we had us done ourselves as well, because like while this was an ambitious open world game, in retrospect, if I were to given a chance again to build something like this, I would actually build up a very small version of the game, publish it, put it out in the market, get market feedback, and build slowly and steadily, gradually. So this is exactly what happened. So while we did have a scope of work document, but because we didn't have the experience to actually build an open world game, we went into that endless trap of actually, iterating and iterating. Additionally, what added to the troubles was that the amount of money that we had raised was already spent. Like we had paid salaries, we had paid out rent, office space, blah blah blah.
What do you
And
mean with
then
already spent? Like, before you started understanding the whole scope, or when was the money already spent? Like,
so we had scoped out everything before we
yeah,
raised funding. Okay, so the project was scoped out,
yeah,
and then after we received funding, it was all execution mode. And then somewhere around the line, we had raised for the next 24 months, but there were a lot of unknown costs that were added on top of that. So
I
like
see.
suddenly from 24 the runway became like 14 months, and we were spending heavily. Additionally, we were also in talks with other investors to raise a follow-up round, because obviously this money was falling short. Now, therein the real problems happened. Like what happened was, we had received a commitment from one investor, I remember, in January 2023, and the amount that was committed to us was received by us in December 2023. So like a year long gap. And in this time, what happened was, like about 6 months in, uh, essentially we were left with no money, because the runway had dried up. We had already spent the money that we received. So I took on, like, took it on as my own responsibility to actually fund the company from my own pocket.
Wow.
And for once, and there was one point of time when my own funds were also exhausted. So I
Of
took on
course.
personal loans and personal debt to be able to pay people. So, that was a very nightmare situation. So,
So
yeah,
somehow the
like
game ended up being a course, like a curse.
it was a course. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Mm, I see. Wow. It's interesting because it sounds very similar to my own journey. I had a similar
yeah,
journey,
yeah,
not exactly the same, but it's a similar journey. Like I worked 6 years doing game development, not game development, software development in general. Like jumping from
yeah,
project to project in different areas, especially like programming, but also focusing on Scrum and production. And until there was a point where, at the same time, I was trying to build different startups, and a friend of mine that worked with me on a couple of startups before started his own video game company. He was a programmer, but he didn't know how to uh, how to handle a company. So he asked me if I
right,
could join in, and then that's when I decided, okay, I'm gonna go all in into game development for the first time. We raised money at the beginning. We finished even our first game because that first game was not like this uh, amazing idea we had, like, oh, this is gonna be the game that we have of our dreams. It was more like a game made in a game jam that on HIO got 75,000 downloads. It was like, okay, this thing is, people are loving it. Let's do something about it.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
So then we um we did the whole project. We managed to keep the scope small and we released it, and it was great. Nominated Best Game Latin America at Gamescom Brazil 2025. Everything was going up. And then for the second game, we made kind of a similar mistake to what you guys did, right? We had some money. We thought we were at the top of the world. People like our games already. And then we started making a second game that was way more ambitious. And our scope just got out of control. Even though we started with a scope that was kind of okay, it just kept growing and growing and growing into the point that we spent much more money than we had. We raised a second round of money. We got another office. We were working on it, and then eventually we thought like, oh no, this game is not going to be ready in 1 or 2 years. It's going to be ready like in five if we continue how we're doing. And in the end, we had to
yeah,
close
yeah,
the studio, and that game never came out. So I kind of feel you in this. It's like the scope creep thing is something that happens a lot in game development, even for people that already have experience, like you had for many other studios. You told me you were even investing on other games. That means that, I mean, you already had a lot of experience on all these things, but somehow the production part of the scope, it's always attacking developers in
yeah,
all their different levels, right?
yeah.
What?
And I think to add to this this problem, until unless you don't face it, you don't realize. Like for example, I get a lot of people coming to me and saying that, hey, you had so much money, why couldn't you just allocate it properly? I mean, if I had the foresight, if I had the hindsight, I would do it exactly like if there was some sort of a formula, like do this. If I press this button and this happened, I would have done that happily. It's just not the way it works,
Do
unfortunately.
you
And
do you really do you really think you would
sorry.
have done it, or you think you might have been blind by your idea of your own game? Because I feel that's what happened to us. We kind of blind ourselves. We
Yeah.
had a plan. We had a formula. We said this works. We did it before, and then at some point we just forgot about it because we were blind from the idea of this great game, right?
It happens. It happens. It's quite normal than people expect. Like generally, what gets regarded in the market is the outcome, right? If you have a positive outcome, people won't worry about how it was made. But if you have a negative outcome, they will start pointing all the bits and pieces. Okay, this is where you could have done better, blah blah blah, without even having any experience. I have 14-year-old kids telling me that you should have done this, you should have done that. At the back of my head, I'm like, okay, but like it's I thought about this as well. I tried to execute it. I had the ball going, but there are so many. Like for example, let's take a very simple example. Let's say you've got a team of 10 people, okay,
Yeah.
and of them you have assigned, prototyping to a part of people. Then you've assigned, modeling. You've assigned programming to one team, and then you've assigned design aspect to your game design. Now suddenly one day your game designer falls sick, right? He's not able to work for 2 to 3 days, right? And then suddenly, because the game design is not ready, the developer can't make a prototype out of it. Since as the developer can't make a prototype, it can't be passed on to the art team for the specifications, and it has this whole lot of other hassles. People think that it is a mechanical thing, like do this, do this, do this, but it's so much more deeper than that. And it's just I mean, I think it's not the audience's headache either to think about it, but like just have some level of empathy for the developers, because like we struggle for this, and this is something that we enjoy doing, right? I mean, making games is great, and we are doing it for an audience, for the humanity to get entertained, to feel disconnected from the rest of the world for those 10, 15, or 3, 4 hours that you play, right? And I've been ridiculed on the internet for raising funds. Like this is the amount of money that I didn't raise for myself. I raised it so that I could make this game. I raised the amount so that I could pay salaries. I say raised the amount so that we could afford an office space and whatnot. And it's very heartbreaking sometimes to see people throw dirt on you when you know that your intentions were the purest, but there's only so much you can do.
But I guess that's how the world works. Until you don't have something out there that they love, they're still going just to ridiculize you because you're trying to do something, but they don't know what it is yet, right? Yeah, I get that part. But then I mean, I wonder, do you have any suggestions or ideas of how can someone try to avoid this, like, or realize the importance of it? Because I think that just having kind of a blueprint that someone else tells you, like, oh, I don't know, have some extra buffer for all these hiccups that might come, or try to follow a formula and don't get out of it or something. But people just get out of it all the time. Do you have any other ideas of what people can do when they're making their own games to avoid this problem of the money and the scope?
uh, what a lot of people underestimate is that they, like, mostly this happens in game development. People don't account for the budget, right? And this happens with the most smallest of teams, right, down to your AAA studios. In smallest of teams, people don't regard their own time as money. Like, let's say you have your own studio. Now you would think that you have all the time in the world and your time is worth nothing, right? So let's say if I'm making a game and I've put in, say, 3 months of my time building the game, and I'm the solo person on it, I will tell everyone that I've made this game at a zero budget, but that's not true. Uh, your time being invested in making the game is the budget. Second part is the equipment that you're using that costs some money. That is budget. Your electricity, Wi-Fi, you're spending money on that. That is budget, right? So a lot of development teams fail to recognize their budgets, and that's when things can go wrong, because like, money is essentially everything at the end of the day, right? We are all doing this for earning money in some way, shape, or form. The second part is that it's kind of interlinked to the budget part as well. Like, you can't put a fixed deadline on certain things. Like, even though you've planned that this game is going to take me 6 months of development time, but there will always be a scenario wherein you will miss that deadline. You will be like, okay, I need another week, I need a month or two to justify this new thing that I'm building. And additionally, going to market, like, people think that once the game is ready, the job is done. But that's where the real work begins, because then you have to communicate with multiple different stores. You have to get your game as much distribution as you can. You have to
Mhm.
create marketing campaigns, and all of that is real work that people, when they're making their games, they're so attached to their game that they forget that they're actually building this game for people. And they fail to market their games. They fail to talk about their own game. They think that I'm gonna upload this game and overnight I'm gonna sleep. Tomorrow I'm gonna get a million users.
True.
It's just not how it happens.
Yeah, I think that what you said there, that people forget they're making it for the people. Like the developers are making this game for the people. I think that's one of the most important things, because that's also part of why the scope gets so uh, bloated,
Okay.
because they just
Yeah.
keep thinking about what they want, and not what they're trying to test with the people. I like I try to follow now, after having those mistakes in the past, kind of a philosophy of testing everything out always with the audience and seeing what actually they like. And once I have something that, like, a core idea, a core mechanic, a core experience that I know that the people are actually liking, the whole game should go around that. So if you
Yeah.
start thinking about something else that it's completely out of that might have another experience, or not really like give anything to that main experience, you're just adding something else. You're not really contributing to the game that should already exist because it's what people like. I try to always feel like, yeah, you need to allow the game to exist, and for it to be allowed to exist, the experience needs to be something that people like. And then
Yeah.
once you have it and you're building the game and everything, the marketing should also go to that. Hey, this experience, people are liking it. You should try it out too. You're gonna love it. But
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
forget that part as well, right?
Exactly, exactly. And additionally, like, in recent times, this has actually become much more better with the advent of AI. Because now, like, we've got all these AI tools that will essentially assist you in speeding up the development, And
Of
I'm not
course.
saying that, generate AI slop, right? I'm not saying that. But I'm
No.
saying that you have access to AI, you can actually give your games far more better quality than what you could. Like, I'll just give you a
You
very
now have to.
yeah,
You
yeah.
have to
So,
give
like,
more
for
quality.
yeah. So, like, for example, back in the days when Mario or Super Mario or Contra were being built, right? At that time, people used to code games manually, right? That must have been such a painful process. Then came game engines, and when game engines came, the purest game developers, they always had this reservation, like, why should we use game engines? We are going to make our own engine. We're going to make games from scratch.
Yeah.
With AI, something similar is happening. Like AI is here as a tool to assist game developers to make better quality games. It's just as effective for the industry as game engines were back then. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's my thoughts on and to add to your point, now it has become significantly faster to actually test out your prototypes and ideas with audience.
Yes.
Earlier prototyping itself was such a long process.
Yeah.
Now, with a couple of MCP server connections and a couple of prompts, you have exactly the quality that you imagined. And if not, you can always prompt it into existence very quickly.
Yeah. Like going before talking about the prototyping thing, going back to the AI thing, I feel like now it's like you exactly how you said you we got a new tool that accelerates the whole process. Everyone can use it. And what kind of some people don't understand is that of course if you use the tool in just a sloppy way and you get something out that is generic, everyone is going to notice you didn't put the effort. And people like seeing something that got effort put on, which just means that now you got the bar got raised up, because even if you do everything by hand and some other person use AI to help themselves, not to do everything by scratch, but use something, it's gonna look as if it was the same amount of effort. So you need now to do other things that people can see, wow, this person really put love into this. And I mean, people should be excited because that means you have now more time to do the things that you actually want to do from it. If you're an artist and you want to get the experience out of your art, you don't need to spend that much time making it. You can help yourself with AI to tweak the things and have it out there as quick as possible. If you are a game designer, everything else is being done faster. Now you can really focus on the design of the experience that you're having. So yeah, sometimes I'm like, I don't understand why people get so scared out of it, because of course if someone just use AI to make a game in 2 seconds and put it out, no one's gonna like it because you can see that there was no effort put into it, and of course it's not gonna be fun. So yeah, definitely in that
Yeah.
sense.
And additionally, at a time where building is no longer the moat, distribution is. Today, building is so much more easier. So, what differentiates a product is the amount of distribution that it has. And, if you're able to produce a game that is touching the lives of other people, surely, you have to talk about it and you have to create your own distribution. So, in the age of AI, the differentiating factor that you have is the amount of eyeballs you're able to bring to your product. And I say product because it just isn't restricted to games. This can be applied to almost pretty much any industry out there, right?
Exactly, exactly. This is not something just for games, but I think that mostly in the artistic fields, people feel this kind of problems with the AI. And I mean, you can argue that game development is the ultimate artistic field because it combines all of them together. But that should
Yeah.
actually mean the opposite, that now we have more opportunities to get out all of our art quicker and do that. And then
Yeah.
that brings me back to the prototyping thing. Now we can make prototypes much quicker. The idea of a prototype is not that it shows you exactly how the game is going to be. It just needs to have the main experience out there so you can test it as quick as possible. And now you're able to make that experience quicker. Maybe, oh, you wanted a specific art to be there because you are having a narrative game and you want to test if people like the narration. You can still use art from other places. You're not going to monetize a prototype yet. It's just a prototype. It's just to test the idea. And you still have other like tools and opportunities that, for example, you can participate on a game jam on itch.io, put your game out and in a weekend, and you're already going to have some people playing it, because in the game jams everyone tried the games of our mothers, and then you get the to test the idea quickly. So there are ways of making prototypes faster and getting them quickly to a random audience to test the idea. Why not use it, right?
Yeah, and additionally, to just expand on this part, development of games is expensive. Like you need people, you need many people to make a game, right?
Yeah.
And people worried about job losses in the industry. Yes, of course, there are going to be job losses. Let's not ignore that fact.
Hmm.
But at the same time, like, it's become so much more easier and cost effective to build a game. That is just crazy. Like, for example, let's take, you want to make something like a Subway Surfer. Okay,
Hmm.
traditionally would need somewhere between 4 to 6 months of development time, polish, blah blah blah. Now, the same team, like the same number of people, can churn that game out in a matter of a month, right? Because it's just like the knowledge base of AI is trained. In fact, like up until last year, I was thinking that AI would not be able to assist in development of games, and now my Twitter feed is filled with all these, one shot. Fable 5 games that have, and they look amazing. They look fantastic. So the cost of building a game is becoming drastically lesser, which, by the way, also means that, somewhere in the future, we will have AAA games at a cost of $5, $10, who knows, even lesser than that. Because when building a game is not expensive, you can price it economically lower so that more people have access to the game, right? And it's just mind blowing, the kind of applications that are going to come out of usage of AI. So
It's
I'm
just
quite
gonna
excited
allow
to.
people to focus on creativity. That's what I believe. Because you're gonna be everyone's gonna be able to be in some level kind of a creative director for whatever part of the art they're doing, and
Yeah.
just use the AI to manage that, to do the parts that much faster than any other time. And yeah, we're gonna have more games
Yeah, I
out.
mean,
All this.
just imagine someone who's like a 60-year-old grandpa who spent his life slogging, working hard to provide for his family, and gave up on his passion of being a game developer at some point, right?
Yeah,
Now, that 60-year-old person can sit over a weekend, code his idea into existence, and be happy. Like, even if that means that, he's not building it for others, even if that's like self satisfaction, he's happy that he was able to do this, right? It's just so magical. And I'm very, I mean,
and who
it
knows?
almost feels like
Sometimes,
we are in an alternate timeline.
sometimes from those kind of people that now are able to do that, something magical can come out, and then you have also a huge, amazing game. That can also happen. So if they have the right ideas, it's possible. I think that also with board games. Like I see so many, like board games are easier to make in that sense. What you need actually is the creativity and understanding of how to make a game. Now game development is getting closer to that of, in the sense of a board game, that anyone with just with the creativity and the good ideas are the people that are going to make the great games, not necessarily people that just work for thousands of hours on tweaking one little thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I like
yeah.
the.
I've trained some students for game development, and like every time I have to tell them that, okay, like let's say if I'm teaching Unity, I have to tell them that, okay, go over here, click on this game object option, then go to 3D and then select a cube. All of that, like, was just like, as of now it just feels like redundant steps. Like, why does one have to do that? They can just think, and it can be in front of them. So
It's
that's
magic.
like,
It's the closest
training
we
has
ever
become.
been to magic, for real.
It is.
Thinking something and manifesting it, right? Like,
Yeah. So very powerful out there.
yeah, I mean, I like this route we're taking of motivation somehow, and on making people understand that it's not doom, right? And
Yeah.
there's then one other thing I would like to touch here. What There's a
Mhm.
reality in the industry that's it's gonna take us again a little bit lower, and that is that about 80% of all the studios that are born never finish that first game they're making. And then there's another one on top, that is that 80% of those never make a second one. They just make a first one and that's it. They disappear. And that's also
That's it.
because, another kind of almost in the same level, only about 20% of every game ever makes enough money to survive and to continue making more games, because they take 80% of all the earnings in the industry.
Yes.
That's basic Pareto distribution, that in like economics in the industry of game development. But what I always
Yeah.
argue, I argue something. I want to finish a point here. Like what
Yeah,
I
yeah.
argue about this whole thing is that yes, it's true that there's always going to be a 20% that is going to take 80% of the earnings. But if the industry grows enough, even those that are in the other percent side are going to be able to survive and keep making games and give us more games. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a very fair point, and this is something that I've also talked about in through my content. Is let's just take one platform, right? Let's take Steam. Now,
Yeah,
if I were to look up Steam analytics right now, there are over 126,000 games that have been released out there, right?
yeah,
And somewhere close to about $100 billion of revenue has been generated. Now, here are some shocking numbers. A median revenue on an average that a developer earns is just about $742. Okay. Average price across the platform is $8. Right. Now, if we go into further more segmentation, about 53.2% of these 126,000 games have earned less than $1,000. Right. That is about 67,249 games have earned less than $1,000. Even from that, a lot of them might not even have recovered their listing fee of $100. And on the other side of the spectrum, only 4,776 games, that is 3.8% of those, have earned more than $1 million, right? So it's like large disparity. And it's just, while that has happened, I would again be on the flip side and say that there is still a chance for developers to be a part of the 3.8%. Something might happen. Like let's take, for example, Schedule One. Nobody saw that coming, right? Schedule One was something that was built purely as a fun project, and it just blew up, right?
yeah.
Let's take, for example, similar game back in 2014's Flappy Bird. Flappy Bird was such a simple, cute little game, right? A frustrating game.
I can tell you
But
tons
it
of
was
examples like those. Mhm.
Yeah, it was only like $50,000 a day. So chances are there. It
What
can
about
happen.
now?
But if it,
We have games like Mecha
yeah,
Chameleon, for example, just
yeah,
explode and was made in 2 months. To say something,
yeah,
right? Yeah,
exactly. And that is what makes me even more fascinated for this industry, because the way that we are progressing as a civilization, pretty much most of the jobs are going to be redundant, right? Like there's automation kicking in left, right, center. Game development is something that I firmly believe is going to be like a safest profession out there, because it's about entertainment. Like, we are building games for humans. As long as humans exist and they want entertainment, games, movies, music, these will always be in demand.
yeah, yeah. Definitely. Art, and entertainment are the areas of work that are never going to disappear. Creativity is always going to be there, and humans want humans to be creative. Like that's 100% how it is. I know that, for example, that has nothing to do, but it's a little bit of an example. I know that now in China they're starting to use robots in some cities to be the ones doing the entertainment. So they're like building stages where people are outside, tourists and stuff, and the robots are making the dances and stuff like that. People are not attending to that as much as when it was a human doing it because it doesn't have the
Yeah,
same energy. You don't feel it. It's just a
yeah,
mechanical thing moving around instead of a person doing the whole thing. So we're not going to lose that. That's never going to disappear.
yeah.
I 100%
Right,
agree on that. But I want to add one more thing. And this that I believe that as it's always been in history of the whole world, the more we have technology, the more technology goes up, the bar races, and everyone that's at the bottom also gets to race up, even though they never get to get closer to the people on the top. They did race. So at some point, I believe that even the games that make the less amount of money, that average is still going to be enough, and then they're
yeah,
gonna be
yeah.
able to do that for their whole lives if they want. Just make game development forever without having to worry about surviving, and we're just gonna have more and more games all the time. I
Yeah.
think it's an exciting moment for real.
So, and like, I also want to like talk a little bit about what Elon Musk has said recently about infinite abundance. Like super high income for everyone. So like when people have a lot of money at uh, their disposal, they will be spending more and consuming more entertainment. So like games, movies, music, and any raw form of entertainment will suddenly see a huge spike, because I think, eventually economies will be built around entertainment. Like right now, we have economies around healthcare, we've got economies around infrastructure, education, whatnot. But I think slowly and steadily we are coming to a stage wherein all of these things will become absolutely basic. There will be a universal high income for everyone. There will be healthcare. Like right now, even with the research going on, uh, I mean, and I'm sidetracking this a little bit from game development, but
No, but it's
it's
great.
it's
It's great.
super it's super interlinked to what we are heading towards. And this sounds like a sci-fi reality, but sci-fi future, but it's very soon going to be like a reality. So yeah, I mean, it's confusing to digest how it's going to happen. But here's what surprises me. And I thought that my dad would not understand this, what's happening, because he comes from, he was born in the 60s, and he's seen, n number of technological advancements. But still, there's a little bit of rigidity in people born before us in perceiving systems that can get disrupted, right? And I was shocked. Like the Elon Musk thing was told to me by my dad, and he was like, "Elon Musk has said this." I was like, "Okay, wow, you are catching up with technology faster than me." So those are the things that are actually happening around us.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely a big change that it's coming. But I don't think for me it's not that shocking into where how it's going to evolve, because I feel like it's actually been evolving like that for a long time. I know this is kind of again out of the topic of game development, but not that much, because in the end it's all about technology as well, and we're talking about this changes in technology. Uh, so I listen to a lot of people saying, yeah, my grandparents used to be able to buy a house, and now for me, I can work for years and I don't get enough money to buy a house. And then I think like when your grandparents were like working in their younger ages, everything was more expensive. And what was not more expensive was just not something they could have. I mean, imagine how, for example, I don't know, in the 80s, someone wanting to have something like communication with someone through a phone that also has a camera. How expensive would have that been? Only the military had something like that. We have that now
Yeah,
every
yeah,
day. We can use that stuff.
yeah.
A
I mean,
a
this
kilo
this
of
whole
sugar, just to have a kilo of sugar now back then was luxury for someone. To get like they will have to work half a day just to have the money to get 1 kilo of sugar. Now you can just get it for almost free. It's super cheap. So in the end, we're actually already achieving that kind of universal income without having the universal income per se in that way, just because everything is more accessible for everyone. And in terms of a
yeah,
house, well, that people from before would just work every day of their lives just to get that house. We travel
yeah,
around, we use other services, we enjoy life every day. Of course,
yeah,
we're spending money on other things, not in the house. If you focus all of your expenses only in the house, you might get it. So yeah, I feel like
yeah,
it's more complicated than what people put it. It's not as simple as just saying, oh, they see one metric and that's because, oh, we're all doomed. No, no, no.
yeah.
There are
Yeah,
much more.
right now we have a much more balanced life than someone from the 40s or the 60s. Like we can socialize, we can hang out. Heck, I mean, this would have been possible in the 1940s or 60s, right? So there's like a whole wealth of information that is just exploding out there, and it only gets better. Like if like we might not be able to imagine something that can happen 100 years from now, but I'm confident in the fact that whatever happens will only be for the better. It's only going to like push upwards from here.
So you would say you're kind of an optimist in this kind of
Yeah,
sense.
100%. Yeah,
Awesome. Yes, I'm kind of too. I know there are a couple of risks, especially in the sense of the population going lower and then everyone getting older, and then younger people are gonna have be taking care of the older instead of working on new creativity and other stuff. But at the same time, if with AI and all this we manage to get quicker to a point where everything kind of gets automatized, even if we have less people for a bit
yeah,
of a time before everyone
yeah,
realizes we need to have more population and everything, we're still going to be able to be creative with less people for our bit. But I
yeah,
think those challenges are something we can still all manage?
Yeah, I mean, yes, there is always the good, the bad, the ugly. I was looking at this one video of I think it was titled 12 outcomes of AI. Of
Mhm.
them, four outcomes were positive, and the remaining eight were extremely negative. So so
Oh,
I mean, the gist of it was that for the first four outcomes, it was like AI will take over everything. AI will take over all the grunt work that is being done, and humans will be left with no sense of economy. So they will essentially wake up every day and do the things that they like doing, right? And and the 12 bad outcomes were saying something like, like AI takes over and it finds out that humans are useless. So let's just, like take over and, so it'll be almost like a scenario wherein we will be kept as pets for AI. So you know what I'm saying? Like how we are entrapping all these animals inside zoos, and keeping them trapped. So AI will kind of do something of that sort to us humans. Of course, I don't want to think too much in that direction because it's quite maddening. But I like to believe that the first four positive outcomes will kick in. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there are more possibility outcomes, and this was just, also content sometimes is just there to make people feel like, oh, there's going to be a big problem, so it flies away more the content and people see more about it. But I'm pretty sure there's also much more better things that can happen. And thinking about this, since you're an optimist and you're thinking about all this positive future with all these things with technology, I want to go for Silk or Hill and ask you something then. Like, what will be now your next steps? Like now, after what happened with Mumbai Gillies and with your studio, what are you gonna work on next? What do you think it's the next thing?
Yeah, so I mean, as of now, the unfortunate part is that because I had taken on so much personal debt, I do have those EMIs and all to service. So for a bit of time, I'm actually working in the industry, trying to get myself down to zero. Because while I've seen all the ups and downs, this has become like a very, very down trajectory. So I'm just trying to pick myself up and service all the debts that I've taken. And once I'm there at zero, that's where I think I would be able to go think freely. But as of now, I'm just trying to, like struggling my way out, and come on top of the situation. Hopefully that happens soon.
Ah, well, at least you're teaching people on your way up again, and you're not stopping. I mean, I see you have your YouTube channel, you have everything going on, so that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm also
Yeah. So
planning
I
in
mean,
the near future to
I,
start again a studio.
awesome. So I have a very simple philosophy, right? Like, for example, a lot of people shy away from sharing their failures, right? Now, what this does is this just compounds the tensions on them, which is going to stay regardless. Like if you failed, you're still going to have that tension. But if you don't talk about it, if you don't educate people that this is what went wrong, then you're being very selfish. And as humans, we need to be collectively supporting everyone else out there, whether they are failing, whether they are successful, doesn't matter. But what matters is like, failure teaches you a lot of things. Success is good to have, success is fun, but failure is something that that people face, but for some reason they don't want to talk about it because it brings a lot of stigma. It brings a lot of things, thought processes saying that, okay, this guy is
It
stupid. Like
hurts.
I think say that, I mean, I will be stupid for some time, right? But
Everyone,
I'm not going to be stupid permanently.
of course,
So I
everyone
think that's
starts being
something that,
stupid. Everyone starts being
yeah,
stupid.
yeah.
And you fail
So yeah,
enough until you're not stupid anymore.
exactly, exactly. I mean, you like, I remember this quote by Mark Cuban: "You only have to be right once, and everyone will start calling you an overnight success." So yeah,
Yeah. So that just means that you have to stay in the game long enough until you win, and that
yeah,
if you're not there yet, it's because you haven't failed enough. If you call it
yeah,
like
yeah,
that, you haven't failed enough. You know you have to keep failing. And the biggest fails, if you communicate them to people, you're teaching them, hey, don't go this route. I went there. I know this is gonna be a big failure. And then you're also helping others not to make those same mistakes and have their other failures until they get to where they have to go. So
yeah. That's exactly what what I was looking for, and thank you for saying that out loud, because like, people will think that, okay, I'm gonna avoid these failures, but they don't realize that they are probably going to make bigger mistakes or smaller mistakes. So I think if we educate people avoid at least these mistakes. I've tried and tested. Now go fail on something else. So at least we get to learn more, and that entire thing becomes like a loop wherein we keep on learning from each other, and it just makes the world a better place.
I agree 100% with you. And I actually, the way I start my presentations is always talking about that specifically. The failures I had and why it's important to understand the failures. And like usually there's a lot of people that start their career and educating people and talking because of one big success they had. I was more like, yeah, I had a big success and then I had a big failure. And that's what took me to, hey, let
Yeah,
me tell people about this so they don't make the same mistake. So I agree.
absolutely.
Well, I think we're now kind of running out of time, so we could start wrapping this up. One thing I would like to, for those people that are just listening and not really looking at this, where can they find you? Can you say?
So I'm pretty much active on all the social media platforms out there. So I'm active on Instagram. I'm active on LinkedIn, YouTube as well. So just look up my name, Nikhil Malankar, and you'll find me. I'm also extremely active nowadays on X, formerly Twitter.
Oh, awesome!
So yeah, so if you're there, hit the follow button, and looking forward to talk to each and every one of you guys as much as I can.
Great, great. And well, now from my side, this was great. Thanks for this conversation. I feel like we could talk about 100 more topics similar to these in the different areas, not only about game development. Maybe we'll make another podcast in the future, but it was great so far. So thank you very much. And thank you guys for joining and watching this episode. See you next time.
Yeah, and a small call to action for Norman, guys. He's a fantastic, narrator, as well as this entire conversation felt very free flow. I had not prepared almost anything for this conversation, so everything that you see and the conversations and the questions that he asked were very natural flowing. So Norman, thank you so much for inviting me, and certainly yes, I would look forward to another podcast with you in
Awesome.
future as
Thank
well.
you. Amazing. See you guys.